I think people do want to give something back to their local area. So this is an opportunity to get in the outdoors, get out in the fresh air, find new areas, areas you can go back with your family for a picnic and say, look what we did, this is what we did here, we've made this better for everybody. I would say, the main group we have is the Nourosh Conservation Volunteers, and that's a group that actually get out and do the physical hard work that needs to be done.
Well, we're clearing this space around here for the Woodland Edge conference at the end of the month. So just making a fire pit, making some seats, and clearing a view down there so people can go and have a look down through the vista.
We all share something here. We share a love of nature, and we share a practical involvement in that. We're all doing something. We all care.
We're all familiar with the volunteer group who comes in to plant trees, crash about in the brash, haul out, have a jolly good fire and a barbecue at the end of it, and that's totally satisfying, and there'll always be demand for that kind of engagement. But these communities are beginning to ask serious questions about what we as professionals are deciding to do with their environments. And remember, generally speaking, we are a temporary resource that a woodland such as this has available to it in terms of the professionals. We will come, do a project, spend the money, and chances are we'll go away.
You've got to be really careful that you don't just give out the tablet to the community and say, take this because it's going to make you feel better. Because as professionals, we have all the answers. We'll listen to you.
And they all have good communication skills.
But what is a community? Define a community. You've used that over and over again. Look at us around here, the Nourosh Project. We've got very local people. We've got people that come from the other side of the valley.
Yeah.
What communities are we talking about? Those that live here, or the communities that use the wood, the walkers, the runners, the orienteers?
That's your hardcore, isn't it? That's your hardcore
I don't know.
Community.
That's what
it's everybody who shares this as a part of their environment that they live in and respond to.
You can be inclusive and exclusive by using that word community. And for as many as you include, you'll exclude an awful lot more.
Talking about this business of working with community, which I think has been a theme which has run through several of the discussions that we've been having this afternoon. There was a lot about the business of sustainability. How do we support groups? This, of course, is speaking very much from the point of view of, if you like, public responsibility or having an agency role. So how do we support these groups that we're launching out into this brave world of being more empowered and management? And there was a slight sense of worry about this. And it wasn't said, but I have to say I was thinking it, and that is, well, yes, of course there's a bit of risk involved here, but never mind, okay, maybe one or two of our treasured projects fail, but for God's sake, it's worth the risk, isn't it?
Those societies, those communities that look after their natural resources are the ones that persist and can adapt to changes in the future. Those that don't are historical. We just study them through archaeology. They've gone. So we really need to take care of our environmental resources and consider what they can do for us and our children and our grandchildren. What this project in the Nourosh is doing, I think, is exploring ways in which the natural resources that they've inherited can be used by their local communities now and in the future. And what I really like about it is their pioneering, optimistic attitude.
Landscape is fundamentally about the relationship between the land and people.
1, 2, 3. Step.
It's very much about people being empowered, being given the tools and being able to make a difference in their local landscape.
Initially, I was a member of the stakeholders group, which was a group, we were 9 to start with, and then we became 11, and we represented the community.
A lot of this type of project is sort of suddenly brought in, placed on a community, and then they end up sort of having to try and live with it. Here it was the foundations of the project were working with the community, and the stakeholders group were that important element.
And we were quite pleasantly surprised actually that that our input was actually taken notice of, because we had to narrow down some projects from, I don't know how many projects there were probably 100 projects. We had to narrow them down to 20 or 30.
You know, looking back, they were heady days, because we did suddenly realise that the community had a real say in this. We weren't just a talking shop.
Our voice was actually heard, which quite surprised us a bit, so we were pleasantly pleased with that.
It's been really important to see how we can harness the interest that there is from local people in getting involved in their local landscape.
The whole aspect of the project was looking at the landscape and protecting the landscape. But the only way you can actually do that is to get the community on board, to get them to work with you to look after that landscape. And initially there was a great deal of well, a series of problems about all of a sudden removing pine plantations, a large-scale removal of those, and it caused quite a bit of problems with the community. But the stakeholders group role was to actually allay those fears and show them and take them to areas where it was being transformed.
The thing that I feel most pleased has come out of the Nourish scheme is the fact that those hugely generous individuals who chose to work with us through the local stakeholders group from the outset have chosen to establish themselves now as an independent trust, the Blackdown Hills Trust, a charitable company in its own right, which has set as its own objectives pursuing the conservation of the Blackdown Hills landscape in a way that is inclusive and allows people to come and enjoy the landscape as much as possible.
I think the reason we've all kept going is because it is working so well. If you're enthusiastic about something and it works well, then you just carry on. You carry on doing it because you enjoy doing it. But if it wasn't working well, I think there might have been a few people fall by the wayside, I think.
I enjoy it, really. It's a good mix of people on the trust, and we all got different interests, and we all get on well. I quite enjoy, I know it's a bit of a scrabble sometimes to get to the meetings.
I found it fascinating the way in which the local stakeholders group has become the Blackdown Hills Trust. For me, they've actually become passionately committed to seeing things happen on the ground. That's what's got them excited. So their role has been, in some ways, to take over from some of the work that the public sector was doing before. So they are attracting funds, they're making decisions on how best to spend that funding, they are looking ahead to where the Blackdown Hills might go in the future, but they're also doing that representing the community. They've all, the trust members, the directors of the trust, have all got connections out in the wider community, and they're listening. So they are, I believe, representing a much broader group of people in the decisions that they make.
And I think in a way that it's a matter of teamwork, so we work together. For instance, we're looking for funding to help keep volunteering, which is an important part of the Nourish project, and that's tied up with the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, because they want to set up a web of potential activities for volunteers to take part in.
By having what I'd like to call a volunteer dating base, we're going to try and join those people that organise volunteer activities and who've got the projects with those people that want to volunteer. And therefore, we're delighted to be working with the Blackdown Hills Trust on this project.
You feel like you contributed something of yourself and for others, and it's good for the soul.
It makes a difference, it matters. It matters that people come out and do this. It matters that people get involved, and it matters that we actually do something for our environment. Building compost loos, fire pits, helping people with the forest schools, those sorts of things. Yeah, I think it really makes a big difference.
We made spaces and spanned the dappled shadows with arching horns.
We counted every speckled wing and searched for every flower.
We made a path to ring the hills and coax the past to speak afresh.
We made sparks to light our hearts and carved our voices into wood.
And it was when we did those things together that we grew.